Hello fellow lovers of the liminal and the weird, and welcome to another video by Liminal Spaces. Today we're going to be talking about the fifth book in the Elric saga, The Bane of the Black Sword. This is my DAW copy. I have 3 Elric DAWs and 3, I think they're Berkeley's. I don't know. I'll show them all off on the live when we talk about this this book on the live. So the last Elric book, The Vanishing Tower, for me was a slight bit of a lull in the series. It wasn't terrible, but it seemed to me to be regular sword and sorcery, which is a really strange thing to say because Michael Moorcock is one of the people that invented regular sword and sorcery. But his stuff is so solid and strong, and for me seems to be a step above that kind of run-of-the-mill sword and sorcery, and I felt like the Vanishing Tower at times felt a little bit like just regular sword and sorcery. So it's important for me to remember that he was writing this in a time when the concept of what is regular sword and sorcery didn't exist. So everything was groundbreaking that he was doing at the time. But The Vanishing Tower lagged a little bit for me. This one had some hit and miss stories, but the hits were better than I feel like the hits were in The Vanishing Tower. So for me, we're starting to go back up. This book starts, interestingly enough, with the climax and end of what I considered the main thread of the last book, mainly the chasing and trying to take revenge of Thaleb Karnaugh, the sorcerer. So throughout the entire Vanishing Tower, Elric is trying to chase down and kill this sorcerer, and he can't do it. And this book opens up with the climax of that story. If you take a bit from the third book, all of the fourth book, and the fifth book, you have this whole epic story of Elric's fight with Thaleb Karnaugh. So, yeah, it's interesting to me that this story cycle is spread over 3 books, but it is. So we get the climax of the Vanishing Tower at the beginning of this book, and then we get stories of Elric and Moongloom running around being mercenaries, traveling through haunted forests into dark ancient lands with dispute of kings. Elric meets a young woman named Zarozinia, I believe that's how you say her name, and they immediately fall in love. It's very strange because I feel like Moorcock is just saying, hey, this is love at first sight. Accept it. This becomes important later. He has to have a wife, so just accept this. I didn't really feel a lot of sparks between these two characters, but yeah, they're instantly in love. Elric marries. Elric tries to give up Stormbringer. So much goes on in this book, and a lot of it was really fun. My favorite part, turns out, is the epilogue, which doesn't star Elric at all, but that really feels like it harkens back to the earlier stories in the Elric saga. We see most of the important themes seen throughout the Elric books in this book. Number 1, we see Elric fighting with his cursed sword Stormbringer. At one point, even fighting to save a person's life from himself using Stormbringer, which is, I think, a theme that's going to play through, especially to the next book, the book Stormbringer. We see him often calling on Elric, the chaos demon that he serves. This idea of chaos and law is very interesting to me, and we get a lot of that in this book. And the idea that the gods that Elric serve know his destiny and are trying to force him. And I don't know if this, I haven't read Stormbringer, so I don't know yet if this is the absolute truth, but it seems like throughout all of this that Elric is constantly letting Elric know that he has a very important destiny. And for some odd reason, when I was reading this, I suddenly realized that the concepts of destiny and chaos don't fit very well together. Like, I feel like the last thing the side of chaos would want is for the concept of destiny to be a real thing, because destiny is about fate, and fate is about everything being preordained, and that in itself means that there's a plan for everything, and a plan is the last thing chaos wants. So yeah, that kind of struck me as I was reading this one. It's strange that chaos seems so intent on wanting Elric to play his part in all of this, a part that was already planned for him. Should you read this? You absolutely should. It's still part of a little bit of a dip for me in the Elric saga. My favorite part, like I said, is the epilogue, which I feel like gets back to some really weird Moorcockian stuff. But I feel like this is all leading up to Stormbringer. Now, I constantly am trying to talk about when these were published and that kind of stuff, and I'm kind of giving up on that because I keep getting it wrong, because this is probably the most confusing bibliography for any writer that I've ever tried to figure out. Just because pieces are named differently and published in different magazines, and what I've slowly begun to realize is all of this was written from like the early 60s to the mid 60s. All of this was written, and the DAW stuff was put out in the 70s. So most of this was written in the early 60s. This is no exception. These are stories that were written in the early to mid 60s, put into this order later. This wasn't considered one full story when it was first written. I do believe that the next book, Stormbringer, is the first time Michael Moorcock tried to write a novel-length story about Elric. And I think it's one of the earlier things he wrote. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry again, but I think that's, if I understand it correctly, I think that's the truth. So this will be coming up next. I'm about halfway into book 1 in this, and it's a huge war, which is not my favorite thing in fantasy writing. I hate when we have to read page after page of descriptions of battle. It's never been my favorite thing. But yeah, it's definitely starting on a darker note, and the prose is really polished in this one, so I'm excited for that one. Anyway, this one, yeah, you should absolutely read it, especially if you've gotten this far into the Elric saga. There's only one more book after it, so you should definitely read it. But also, there are really good points in there, like a weird frog creature from another dimension that sucks people's souls. Really, really cool. The crazy, weird, undead king that lives under the mountain in Org is the name of the capital, I believe. And the traveling through dimensional gates in order to save Tanaloon. I think that's the right city. All very much worth it in this book. I am going to do a deep reading on this, so you can expect that in a couple of days. But for now, yes, read this book. It's a good time, and the Elric saga continues. Thank you so much for watching.